people, I heard about the Blair Witch Project, months before celluloid ever appeared in front of us. Talk me through the kind of the website idea and how that all worked before you actually got to release.
The film showed on Split Screen, which is John Pearson's show in the U.S. It shows on Bravo and IFC, and we got a lot of buzz from that. There's a lot of reaction on his website about whether it was real or not, and when is the Haxon, that's the company we have, when is the Haxon site going to be up, and this and that. So we kind of, scrambled to get a website up, and we started up in June of last year, and we just started putting mythology up there, the stuff that we had developed for the background of the film. And we had done a lot of stuff. We had, pictures of film cans, pictures of crime scenes, news footage, and newsreels, all kinds of stuff that we put up there. And people just really like coming to the website and kind of investigating. So we kind of had this following already. And then one of the cool things that happened is on Halloween, one of our fans called the Mark and Brian Show, which is a pretty popular morning show in LA, and it's syndicated, I guess, all over the US. And he called up during Halloween and, started talking about the Blair Witch site to Mark and Brian, and they actually got online, on the air. And we had a huge jump that week,
Did somebody say McDonald's?
Wow.
You are the man.
You're the man. You are the man. So, things like that, generated more buzz, and, once we got into Sundance, that was even more, and people started paying attention, going to the website more.
So the website's been amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the website's been amazing. I think this is one of the few examples of the internet making a film accessible to anybody, and that was what our goal was, is to bring all this mythology to the public and allow them to do their own research and probe into the Blair Witch and read Heather's journal and all that stuff, and allow them to get excited about the film
without ruining it.
Without giving the film away.
Without ruining anything about the film.
Yeah.
But also, of course, that's been possible because I've rarely come across a more intensively researched and developed concept and thought. So you had the material there. But take me back. What was the genesis for the Blair Witch Project?
Well, Ed and I mean, we met each other in film school back. We started in '90, and in '93 we were just sitting around in his apartment one day, like most any other day. We just hang out in our apartments.
Just hanging out, watch bad movies.
Right. And we got to talking about horror films and, kind of the state of horror films at the time, that we hadn't really seen anything that really scared us since, like, The Exorcist or The Shining. And then we got to talking about those old documentaries, In Search of, with Leonard Nimoy and Legend of Boggy Creek. And we're just, kind of relishing the nostalgia of how those films used to creep us out as little kids, and say, would it be cool to do a narrative film in that kind of format, that documentary format? And that's really where it took off, and we just said, well, let's develop a premise that, why something would be shot that way. And we came up with the 3 filmmakers and about them disappearing in the woods, and then we said, well, they need to be out there for some reason, and, well, let's develop this whole mythology about why they're going out there, about this local legend and folklore, and that led to us developing, with our producer Greg Hale, all this backstory. So it just kind of evolved. It's like I think a lot of films, in one respect, where the idea just kind of leads into other ideas, but different in the respect that it needed all this mythology that has helped to complement the film. So it's really been an interesting process on how this thing's kind of taken on a life of its own.
The move from film school to, without being patronising, real filmmaking often sunders relationships, and what's extraordinary about this is how you guys have shared the responsibilities. In reality, how did that work out?
Well, I mean, Ed and I mean, it's such a small film in reality, and when you have a crew of 7 or 8 people, you have no choice but help move the tents around and move equipment and build stickmen, and everyone pitched in. And it was a huge collaborative effort, both logistically and creatively. We all work very well creatively together. We have our strengths and weaknesses, and I think we're old enough now to kind of realize that we're good at some things and not so good at others. And so, as a group, the product of our collaboration is greater than what we do individually, and especially on this film, it's just been an absolute necessity for all of us to contribute in some form or fashion, and it's worked out very well. And Ed and I had worked together in film school on some projects, and those kind of led into this one, and the relationship's been really good. We've had our ups and downs, like any relationship, but I respect him and the guys that we work with, implicitly as filmmakers, and I'm just fortunate to be working with those guys, So,
we're used as journalists to talking to cast and crew, I don't know, Saving Private Ryan, been through boot camp, all the rest of it. But reading this stuff, I mean, it sounds horrid, what you guys were going through. What was it like?
It wasn't that bad. I mean, when we were going through it, it was like we were always complaining and stuff, and having to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then get up at 7 or 8 to do directing notes, and then follow them around all day, and then I mean, because the film was being shot 24 hours a day, so
someone always had to be on.
Yeah, somebody always had to be, and it was just kind of like, but it was just kind of like a weird experience, because the set was in the woods, and you couldn't just get off, there's no trailers, you couldn't get out of your car and go into a sound stage and there it is. You had to actually walk like a mile through the woods to find the tent. But it was kind of exciting sometimes, I mean, you're walking through the woods like at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're in full we're all in full camouflage, and it's just like this guerrilla warfare, insurgency.
We've got these red lights
on
so that the actors can't see us, but you can kind of illuminate your way as you're going through the woods, and just very zen at times.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like we have regular flashlights until we get to a certain certain distance from the tent, and then we would switch over to the red flashlights, and
it's very
get close,
military-esque.
And then it was just cool. Like it was almost like those shots of the Titanic at night. I mean, in that they've found the ship now, where you kind of approach and you just murky water, and all of a sudden you see the hull. It was kind of like that. It's like you'd be walking, and it'd be like, there it is, and you'd see the tent. You barely see the tent, and there was like this human, this man-made thing in the middle of the woods. But it was just, it was just really cool. And then you start, running around the tent, and then you stop and you hear the actors getting up and talking and turning the cameras on, and then the light comes on in the tent, and then you try to hide, and then it was just really exciting, It was,
and just realizations like we'd be walking in the woods, and we're doing exactly what he's describing, and we'd stop and think, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, is this gonna work?
Is this a movie? I hope.
But Hitchcock said treat actors like cattle. You obviously moved to one and treat actors like prey or something. But I mean, you're obviously driven by your enthusiasm for the project. How did the actors take it?
They thought it was great.
They loved it.
I mean, it was a hard work for everybody, but it was such a collaboration on both the filmmakers and the actors. I think it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was it allowed them to do what they dream of being able to do. And that's, like almost total creative freedom.
Yeah, our ad in Backstage that we ran for the audition said improvisational feature film, and we got an overwhelming response. I mean,
thousands.
Yeah, a lot of people, and we had to turn away a lot of people. So, it was just, I think it was an actor's dream, this film. And Joshua.
Except on maybe the 6th night or 7th night.
Yeah, then they wanted to get the hell out of there. But like Joshua, couldn't make it for the first batch of auditions, but he got my home number somehow. So he would call me like every month and a half, and just talk for like an hour about who he was and how cool the idea was, and he was really into it. And he just kept calling me, and we didn't even audition him. He just came into one of the callbacks, and he did a scene with us real quick, like a 5-minute scene. And then we asked everybody to leave, and then Dan and I looked at each other and said, okay, we cast at least one guy.
That's our guy. Yeah.
And so, it was kind of like that. I mean, he really wanted to get the part, and all of them were like that, I mean, Heather's family kind of, told her, don't go, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go in the woods with a bunch of guys? You're going to Maryland, in the middle of the woods, with a bunch of guys, and a bunch of guys that you don't know are gonna be, chasing you and doing all kinds of things. What, are you crazy?
Right.
But she was, luckily she trusted us, and everything turned out pretty well.
Finally, before you take your burger break, when you were talking back in the 90s, I mean, I guess the horror movie was kind of moribund then, because we'd had the Nightmare on Elm Street and the Halloweens that kind of run their course. Now, of course, horror is postmodern, and the whole Scream thing has changed things. Did that affect how you approach it, or are you going back a generation to a different type of horror movie?
Did what affect us? The Scream?
The whole sort of, trendy, self-referencing type of horror movie that's come up in the last few years.
Well, I mean, we just wanted to make something that was scary, that scared us. I think, every film. We're not going to sit there and say what should or shouldn't be done, and all films have their cycle, their peaks and valleys in phases, and I think you're right. I think the Scream films may be running their course, and we were always fans of the more psychologically based horror, on The Exorcist and The Shining and films like that kind of leave a residual effect on you when you leave the theater, and so that's what we were approaching. We said, this is what scares us, so let's just make a movie about what scares us, and hopefully people will embrace that. But because what we had seen up to that point just wasn't doing it for us. I mean, those weren't really horror films to us as much as they were just shock value films, and they had their place and they're fun, but we just wanted to do something that was really genuinely scary and that would affect people.
Yeah, and what really inspired us more, than horror films was really just those documentaries from the '70s, the late '70s, like the Chariot of the Gods and Legend of Boggy Creek. I mean, that was actually what we were after.
Right.
So the Scream films, and the
they weren't even
Nightmare
out
on
yet.
Elm Street. Yeah. I mean, it just didn't. They weren't the same kind of film.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't really anything to look at and say, oh, we can't do this and we're going to do that, exactly like this. They weren't the same type of film, so.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
Hope
you.
you enjoy the festival.
Thank you very much. You did an excellent job.